Hey there, everyone. This is Tanner Duncan. I'm joined by John Murphy, one of the Ruckus engineers on the team that covers North America. Super excited to talk about Ruckus today. We've had a lot of success with partnering with Ruckus over the last few years, or maybe even the last decade, and we're really lucky to have John hop on today. So, John, thanks for joining us. I'm really just going to pass the conversation over to you. I know you have lots of content to cover in a short amount of time, and we're going to cover some Ruckus Analytics. So I will be monitoring both the Q&A and then the chat. So if any questions do come up, feel free to chime in and we'll try to get those questions answered as soon as possible and be wrapped up right by 11 o'clock. So go ahead, John.
Thank you. So yeah, John Murphy, I'm a principal systems engineer with Ruckus CommScope, and we're going to talk about Ruckus Analytics today. I want to set the stage a little bit, just a couple slides, and we'll jump in, a lot to cover. If you have questions, yeah, please do throw them out there. We'll get them answered. So basically, I have a statement here on screen. Networks are now too complex for normal humans to manage effectively. And I think this is, if it's not already true, it's rapidly becoming true. If you look into all of the low-level mechanisms of how network protocols work, there's a lot going on, lots of moving parts. And especially in these large networks with lots of wireless devices, varying RF conditions, and so on, it can become extremely challenging to manage and troubleshoot these networks. And then just a little backup data here. This is from a survey we got from Circon Research a couple years back, and this is still, I think, holds true. 42% of network professionals spend too much time on troubleshooting. I think we can probably all relate to that. And you know, the number one trouble that we see in our networks tends to be wireless related, or that's what we're hearing from our customers. So, you know, how do we help resolve this complexity and manage these networks and understand what's happening? Well, you can get help kind of three ways. So you can hire more people and get them trained, and of course that costs money too. You can use other people that are not in your organization, which would be outsourcing and working with partners, and that can definitely help, and we encourage that, you know. But then the problem there is that still, you know, people only have so much time. People need to be scheduled. So the third thing we can do is to actually apply computing power to solve this problem. So how do we apply computing power to solve this problem with network complexity and the difficulty in troubleshooting these complicated networks? And so I'm here to position that the answer is Ruckus Analytics. Ruckus Analytics is our AI and ML-driven platform. Lives in the cloud, takes data from either your cloud controller or your Ruckus Smart Zone controller, either on-prem or that could be in the cloud as well. And we do a lot of interesting things with that data to trickle up problems in the network that you may not even be aware of yet, and help you see what's going on, you know, with a rapid response. You can get these things triaged and fixed and focus on what's really important. And with that being said, I'm just going to jump now right into the demo. So here is the Ruckus Analytics interface. There's a lot to this. I'm going to touch on the highlights here. It's really very difficult to cover this in the time allotted, but I'll give you a good sense of what the tool can do. And if anyone wants to see more of this, we're always interested in you know, having one-on-one conversation, and we can do a more extended demo or get you a trial. So basically, this is the dashboard. And what I have on my dashboard here, you can see at the upper right, I have these incidents that I've detected in the network. So these are categorized into priorities. You can see I have 10 P1, 3 P2, 7 P3, and 70 P4. We can also see there's a date filter here on the dashboard. Here I have 24 hours. As we get into the other areas of the tool, you'll see I can expand that date range greatly. We actually keep the data for a year. So it gives you extensive ability to go back and look at trending or comparison between different time periods. I can also filter in on different types of incidents. So we have these incidents categorized in 3 categories of connection, performance, and infrastructure, and I can apply that. You can see the incidents are color-coded. So red is P1, that's bad, orange, P2, not as bad, and so on. And that color coding is also shown in the circle diagram below, which represents all of the different areas in the network. So if you're on a smart zone controller, this is going to be like zones and access point groups. This usually maps to a building or a location. So you can very quickly see not only how many of these incidents we've detected, but what's the scope of those within the network. You know, we have some P1s, which is bad, but the scope is fairly small areas. And the way we do this prioritization is we look at all of the data around these problems that we detect. So we look at what is the nature of the problem? Is it that a person can't connect to the network? Is it that it's taking them too long to connect to the network? Or are they connected, but maybe they're just going slower than they need to? And then how many people did it affect? And then how long were those people affected? So we look at all those sorts of metrics and we create a score and we weight incidents on that score. And that's how we come up with these priorities. So I'm gonna go dig in a little bit deeper here. I'll click on see incidents. And now I'm gonna get my list of incidents that have been detected. Just so you know, we can enable email notifications on these. So that's per user. So I could go into my profile settings here and I could choose that I wanted to be notified for, maybe I only want to see P1s and P2s, and I'll get email notifications for those. So that's available, and you'll get those as soon as we detect the incident. But you can always come into the dashboard here and see all the incidents that have been detected. So you can see there's a few, there's a graph here showing you the number of incidents we have. In the center, we have a graph that's showing you the clients in the network, both in terms of the total clients as well as impacted clients. So the blue is impacted clients, which means clients in these blue peaks here are clients that were impacted by one of these incidents that we detected. And then down below, I have the details of all the incidents. So I can do several different things here. By default, we're sorting by priority. If I wanted to sort a different way, I could click on any of these headers and sort. So now I'm sorting by impacted clients. So you can see this top incident now is this P3. It's a time to connect incident, and it's affecting 697 clients, which is 71.71% of the clients in that area of the network. So that's one way I can look at this. And if I want to filter on specifics,
Hey, John.
of these, yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. Your screen might have froze. Can you move your mouse around a little bit and see? We might want to restart your screen sharing. I think
All right.
we're still back on that main dashboard. All right.
All right. You
I think
back?
we're up. I think we're up and running somehow.
All
I think
right.
we're recording.
Okay.
I don't know what
Awesome.
happened there.
All right. So you can see my
Okay.
screen now.
Yeah, I got you.
Excellent. Okay. So yeah, so basically you can also, in any of these search boxes at the top of these columns, we can, if you want to look for something specific, like say dhcp incidents, I can search there and those will pop up. And then for any of these incidents, I can just jump right into the details for the incident. So right now we're looking at a dhcp failure type of incident. This screen here is going to be different depending on the incident type. But this is specific to dhcp failures. Right away, you can see on the right of the screen, we have a root cause analysis. So this is some things that you can check. These are some common issues that cause this type of incident, as well as some recommended actions that you can take to try and remediate this type of incident. These will be different, per type of incident. And then we have a number of graphs here that are showing you different aspects of how this incident is expressed to help you try and get to the root of it. We can show you what WLANs this happens on, what is the reason. So this is a DHCP failures, but why? We have, most of these are timeout expired. So some things going on there. We can see the client manufacturers, pretty even distribution here. Sometimes you'll see all one client. That's a good indication that it's a client specific problem. In this case, it's this really not. And then we have the DHCP failures individually, and then the clients. And then if I want to see who was affected by this, I can click on view details, and these are all the individual clients that were affected. If I click on this link, I'll get to the client troubleshooting screen, which I'll show you in a minute. I can also get to the client troubleshooting screen from anywhere in the tool just by searching in the search box here. I can search for any text. That text can be in a host name, a MAC address, an IP address. It could be a username. If we have that text, we'll filter that client up. And then here's one that I found earlier by searching on my name, John. And you can see that there's this device that's called John's Air, and it is it has had some connectivity issues. So in this case, now I'm troubleshooting a specific client. Maybe this person called the help desk, they're having some problems. So I can see exactly what's happening. If we look at their connection events, I can see they have one success, which is the screen circle, and they've had 5 different failures during the time that we're looking here. If I click on one of these failures, it's going to give me a breakdown similar to what you might see in the client troubleshooting screen in the Smart Zone, where it's showing that all of the flow of the management frames and the eventual problem, which in this case was a radius access reject. So you can very clearly see here from this that the problem is that the radius server said no. So they either had the wrong password or they don't have access and they're trying to get access where they shouldn't. So it's very quick to kind of trickle this up and see what the deal is. So that is the incidents and client troubleshooting. I'm going to move on. There's several other areas of the tool that provide a lot of value. This is the network view, or the network health view. And this shows you a lot of high-level stats about the health of your network. And again, I could filter this into a specific area of the network by using these filters, and I could change the date range here to whatever I want, going back up to a year. So first thing I'm seeing is connection data, connection attempts, how many were successful, how many failed, and what's the ratio, and what's the time to connect. If I want to see more detail about this, I can click in any of these boxes and we'll get a breakdown. So I'm looking at failed connections, and now I'm looking at the breakdown of those failures. So you can see it, if the failure happened in the 802.11 authentication or association phases, if it happened, if it was an EAP failure, if it was radius related or DHCP failure. And then if I click on any of these categories, like I'll click on DHCP here, then you'll get the breakdown of all of the clients that were impacted by these DHCP failures. So we're looking at one day, here's the DHCP failures, it's 24.75% of the network. If any of this looks strange to you, know that this is just a lot of lab systems that are connected. So we want to generate lots of problems, so we have something interesting to show. And you can see down below here, here's the individual clients. And then if I click on this client troubleshooting link for any one of these, take us straight to that client troubleshooting screen we just looked at. Or I can pull up a client details report, which I'll show you in a little more detail when we get to reporting. So lots of good data there. And then if I scroll down, here we have our SLA tracking section. So you can see we have a number of these SLAs, and we have connection success, time to connect, client throughput, AP capacity, and AP to controller connection uptime. And what we do here is we track the performance of the network against these SLAs. And each of these SLAs is customizable, and you can customize this for different areas of your network if you have different requirements. So basically, you're going to set these the way that you want. So if the time to connect of 2 seconds is what you consider good performance in the network, then you set this to 2 seconds, and we'll track the performance against that. So you can see it's about 91%. If I change that to 1 second, you'll see that the time to connect metric drops, because now, obviously, if we make the SLA stricter, then the percentage of the clients that are going to meet that SLA is going to drop. But basically, you set this the way you want, and then we'll monitor it. So that is the health tracking section. And then we also have this service validation tool, which is really more of a proactive test. The way this works is I can create these tests that basically I can go look anywhere in the network. So now this is going to pull the topology from my smart zone or my Ruckus cloud, and I can come into the area that I want to run the test on, and I can select multiple of these if I wanted to. And then I can create this test. So this is a synthetic test. We create a virtual client on the AP. We can run this on a single AP or a group or even all your APs. And basically, we're going to pull the information on what the WLANs are. So these are the names of the SSIDs that I have configured on the zone that I selected in my test. I could pick the WLAN. I can pick the authentication method. You see we can support WPA2 personal and enterprise, open, 802.1x, Whisper, web authentication, and guest access. So pretty much anything you may have set up, we can test it. And then depending on what you pick here, if I pick WPA2 personal, you can see that we actually will pull the password from the smart zone, so I don't need it. But if I were to pick like an 802.1x, then or a WPA2 enterprise for 802.1x, then you'd have to specify the username and password. And this is going to be a real user that you have in your Radius or Active Directory backend, and we'll test with that user's credentials. And then for the DNS server, I can either take the default or I can specify a custom DNS server. And then I can give some ping and trace route targets, and we will test against those targets. So we'll give you the ping latency, we'll give you the trace route that we saw. And if we want to do a speed test, we can turn that on too. And that is going to be using the speedtest.net servers. So that is what that looks like. And then if we pull up one of these tests, let me grab one. Here's an example of a test. In this case, everything passed. So you'll see if there was a failure, you would see a portion of this green would be red for the one that failed. So in this case, we have 2 APs under the test, 100% passed. And in this screen, on the overview, we're going to see the averages across all the APs under test. If I want to see the details, I can click into the details tab, and now I will get an individual result for each AP under the test. So you can see for 802.11 auth association, this was a pre-shared key, DHCP passed, DNS passed, ping was 21.7 milliseconds for this one AP and 39.2 on the other. And then you can see the upload and download tests here. So this makes it really easy to validate that everything's working as far as all the VLANs are tagged through the AP, the DHCP is working, DNS is working, routing is working, and you can see how that actual performance is at any point in the network. So really nice tool. That's service validation. And now I'm going to move on to reporting. So The other thing that Ruckus Analytics can give you is very extensive reporting. Pretty much anything you want to know, you can get it here. We have a lot of these pre-built reports that have been custom crafted for you that apply to most use cases. And then if you want something a little bit special that's not covered here, I'll show you how we can create custom reports and dashboards as well. But looking at some of the pre-built reports, you see we have an overview. This gives you lots of really good information about your whole network. So how many controllers, access points, switches do you have? What's your network usage look like? And you can look at this in a number of different ways. So I can click on these different labels at the bottom. If I only want to see APs, I can just click on APs and I can see what's my top AP in terms of client count and throughput. If I want to see in maybe zones, I can just look at zones. I can look at zones and APs and switches. So whatever you want to see here. And then here we're going to have all of our alarms and events and our kind of top 10 lists. If I move into now a wireless specific report, so now all this data is about wireless. So they're going to be your top APs by traffic and by client count, and your traffic trends over time, for whatever part of the network you want to look at. So here you have not only the time filter, but I can actually filter into all the different network elements. So if I want to look at specific controllers or zones, I can pull that up. If I want to look at specific SSIDs or specific radio frequency bands, I can pull that up here as well. And so I can filter these in. Similarly, for the wired network, I have a report for wired. This is all just about switches, distribution of traffic by switch model and port speed. This is going to give you your PoE utilization, any kind of switch errors, and again, traffic trends. And then for APs, we have an AP inventory report. This is going to be lots of good information on versions, and if there's any APs that are having any kind of alarms or rebooting or anything like that, we're going to see that here. Similarly for controllers, switches, I won't go into detail on all of these. WLANs, it's very similar, but it's going to be expressed in terms of WLANs. So what are my top SSIDs in terms of traffic, in terms of client count, et cetera. So you can see there's lots of information here in these pre-built reports. I'll just give you one more. This would be the client report. So here's going to be all your information about clients. So your top 10 OSs on the network by client count, your manufacturers, authentication types, your client details, your trending over time. And then you can see we have like our top clients by traffic. If I click into one of these clients, I'm going to give you an example of what the client detail page looks like. So if I click into that, I get a client details report. This is available for every client that we know about in the system. So I can get this by clicking into one of these other reports, or I could just go straight to this client details page and put the MAC address in. Or if I search for a user in this top level search bar, I get two options when I find a user. I can either look at that troubleshooting page we looked at earlier, or I can look at this client details report and see all the information about this client. So everything's all here. And then of course, switch details. One other thing, comparison report. I won't go into detail here, but basically you can create filters of different areas of the network. So if I want to compare, say, like, two different schools or buildings to each other and see how the comparison works between those two, then I can just create two different filters here. I can put them, and then I'll get a side-by-side comparison of those two zones. And then I also have this a PCI compliance profile that I can create. So if you're doing any kind of credit card processing and you need to maintain PCI compliance, then we can create one of these PCI compliance reports. You'll have to select the areas of the network that that the credit card processing happens in, and then you answer this checklist of questions, and we'll give you a detailed PCI compliance report that you can share with your auditor. So that's all the reporting. You can see there's a lot there. If you should happen to want to know something that's not there in one of these pre-built reports, that's where you come to the Data Explorer. The Data Explorer is going to give you extremely fine-grained control over any statistic that we collect. So the way this works, there's a number of these things we call data cubes, and these data cubes all contain different types of specs. So for example, if I click on the client's data cube, you can see I have this long list of dimensions on the left. So these are all of the different types of information we collect about clients. So you see we have things like the name, the username, the client MAC, the client AP, the VLAN, the radio mode. So lots and lots of detail here. And on the right, we have these things called measures, which are the statistics that we're collecting. So this defaults to user traffic. We can look at user traffic total, downlink, uplink, host name count, session count, et cetera. The way this works is if I grab one of these dimensions on the left, so I'll take client MAC and I'll drag it over here to the right, and it's going to look at dimension. It's going to look at measure over the dimension. So the measure is user traffic and the dimension is client MAC. So I basically just have a list of every client MAC we see, how much traffic did it push. So that's a fairly simple example. How to make this more interesting. maybe I want to see also what SSID that client connected to. So if I drag SSID up here to the Explorer column or Explorer row, now I'm looking at both client MAC and SSID, and then I'm going to give you user traffic. So in this case, if I can find an example of a client that was on 2 SSIDs, and here's one here. So you can see this client here with this MAC address ending in E72C has connected to 2 different SSIDs, one called Asgard Legacy and one called Asgard, and they had 9.27 gigabytes on Asgard Legacy and 0.08 on Asgard. So that was very quick for me to build this. And this is just an easy way to get this information. And maybe I don't want to see a table, but I want to see a bar chart. We have a number of these different visualizations that I can create. And then, maybe I want this available in a dashboard for easy access. I could just click and add this to a dashboard, and we will add this to the, you can either add it to an existing dashboard or you can create a new dashboard. And if I create a dashboard, it's actually going to give me the ability to control, how much space I want to use. So I can create any one of these widgets, and we can save this widget, and I can have multiple of these widgets on the page. And I'll show you what that looks like. So if I pull up one of the existing dashboards, so here's a dashboard someone built using that method that I just walked you through in the Data Explorer. Each of these widgets on the dashboard corresponds to one of those data cubes. And what's really interesting is I can also filter in on any of these. So you can see in this case, we've built this dashboard that looks at AP name and AP MAC and shows for each of these APs, what was the user traffic, the client count, the throughput estimate, the RSS, and the SNR. So this is all really interesting information as to the health of the network. And it's very easy to build this display. Then I also have this AP inventory over here on the right. This is showing me inventory of APs in the network. And then down below, I have this unique client MAC count. So what's interesting with the way these dashboards work is I can filter in on any one of these elements. So if I click on one of these MAC addresses here and I select that, then we'll add that as a global filter across the entire page and across all of these widgets. So as you make a selection in any one of these widgets, we filter across all widgets. So now I'm only looking at this one MAC address here, but you can see that that's also changed the results in the other widgets as well. So this is a T710, we know that because our AP inventory got filtered by that MAC. And then also the unique client MAC counts that we see below and the average throughput estimate. Now these have also been filtered only looking at this one specific MAC. So that's just one example of how you can build these widgets in the Data Explorer. Then you can create these filters to drill down and get to the piece of information that you're looking for. So that is the basics of the tool. Just a couple more things real quick. So you can onboard multiple controllers. You can have as many users as you want, either internal users or you can invite third-party users, which are the users that are not part of your organization. You can also create resource groups. So if I want to, for example, let's say I'm an administrator that has a school district, I have several schools, and I have a technology person at each school, and I want them to be able to see just their school. Very easy to do, just create the resource group. I can select the zone that corresponds to that school, and then I can add that administrator, and then they'll just see that particular area. And maybe I only want to give them read-only access, I could do that as well. If I wanted to engage Ruckus support, maybe I have something I'm trying to troubleshoot, I need a little help on. If you engage Ruckus support and open a case, you can also come in here and turn on the support access in the tool, and that lets our support people get right in and see what you're seeing, and that'll help them help you faster. And then finally, we have these webhooks, and what this does is it allows you to create basically an API call out to an external system, and this is to push this incident data out to your ticketing system. So if you use something like ServiceNow as a ticketing system for your help desk, and you want to be able to automatically create tickets in that ticketing system when we detect incidents, that's what this is for, and it's very easy to set up that integration. So that was your whirlwind tour to Ruckus Analytics. If anyone has any questions, please put them in the questions to the chat and get them answered.
Awesome, John. That was really thorough, and I appreciate you covering everything there. No questions have come up so far. We'll kind of hang tight for a couple minutes, see if anything trickles in. Otherwise, we can wrap up, and I'll kind of watch and see if people start dropping off and kind of go from there. But yeah, if there's anything else that pops up in your mind that you want to go over, we'll just keep going until 10:30. Otherwise, we'll just kind of stop it when people hop off.
I'll just show one other thing here. This topology, this is something we just added. So this is, we started off with this tool being a wireless tool, and we're adding in all of our switch statistics from our ICX switches. So we now have this topology view. So this would be topology of your wired network. So these are gonna be all the switches, and then we can show you, how these different switches connect to each other, and you can kind of click in here and see from different, maybe not that one. You can kind of see the hierarchy of what switch connects to what in the network. So that's something kind of interesting. And then you can also search for a device name here. I don't know, little AP will bring up anything, but you can search for devices in the network. And if we have that match, we'll show you here in the topology view. So that's another kind of cool thing we just added recently. See what else. Oh, as far as licensing, I should mention, so when you license the tool, basically it's licensed per access point. Ideally, you'd want to license your whole network to get the best view of everything. But if you just needed to troubleshoot an area, you can move these licenses around. So like, let's say I'm troubleshooting a particular school. Maybe I just have like 100 licenses. I can move those licenses around to whatever APs I'm looking at. Now we're not going to collect and retain data unless the APs are licensed. So, if you're looking to retain all that historical data for the whole network, then that's where you'd want to license everything. But if you're just looking for some help troubleshooting, then this is certainly a valid use case for this tool as well, where you can just have a batch of licenses that you move to the area that you need a little help troubleshooting, and then we'll collect this information and generate any incidents that we see. So.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, John. We had a couple of people drop off. Thank you for being a part of this today. And oh, we just got one. So licenses are AP specific. What about adding other devices like switches?
Yeah, so we actually haven't started requiring licenses for switches yet. We do have some switch data. You saw there's a switch report, and you saw that there is a well, you didn't see, but there's also already some switch incidents. Like for example, we have a VLAN mismatch incident. If the VLAN memberships don't match on two sides of a link. As of today, we haven't started requiring that, but soon we probably will. Once we get enough of those switch incidents in there where we feel like it's, there's a lot of value to the switching side. Right now, you're just basically getting bonus, free incidents. The intent is that you would license switches and access points both, but they're not tied to the specific hardware. So it's kind of like licensing for APs or switches on a controller. You have a pool of licenses, you can assign them however you want, and you can move them around.
Perfect. Well, that about puts us at our time. Thank you so much, John. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me, or I can forward the information to John, or we can connect you with anyone else to answer some Ruckus related questions or deployment related questions. So thanks all for coming over, and we'll catch you later.
Thanks, everyone.